Vasudevaya. So I had a bit of a request to speak, or somebody was asking how to sort of navigate our way through this current time in which we live, which I have termed as the age of outrage. And I'll tell you why I've done that. If you look, with social media, the introduction and wide acceptance of social media, the manner in which people sometimes communicate is just like mind-blowing. If you see something that you don't like or that you don't approve of, like your God or something, then you're just going to jump in there and start just absolutely shredding another person. And that shredding often means all kinds of derogatory and horrible statements that have nothing to do with what a person said. You start attacking people on a very personal level. And when that first started happening, the people that did it were called trolls. I mean, a troll is not meant to be a very gracious, intelligent, or sophisticated creature. It was meant somebody from the deep, dark pits of the earth, a troll. But now, nobody relates that way. It's become very common. And it's become sort of like what you expect to encounter. And that's a little tiny peek into what's going on. And it's become so, for me, and I'm speaking just from my perspective, it's become so insane that a person that expresses a particular political point of view or a social point of view can be equated with a Nazi, one of the most horrible. I mean, that ideology, that philosophy, we hadn't seen anything like that since the Vandals and the Huns sacked Rome. I mean, it was horrific what they did on the basis of race and superficial external identity and everything. And so now somebody who just morally doesn't agree with something or socially doesn't agree with something, they're going to be called names that are fit for mass murderers and the most horrific of people. And of course, what that does, it undermines the reality of where people can go in terms of consciousness and the type of things that people are capable of. When we trivialize fascism and Nazism or communism, I mean, they were mass exterminators of people. I mean, when you trivialize it by calling somebody that's got a different social philosophy or political philosophy with those kind of labels, you are not helping yourself. And so everything has become sort of like amped up, increasingly amped up. And this is not cool at all, because in your life, the need for us to be able to interact with others and this world and everything that we're doing, everything that's going on, the need to be able to do that in a cool and calm way where we are not overly influenced or affected by our mind and emotions is actually essential for our own health and for the health of society, and for there to be some possibility of spiritual insight. You cannot lead a spiritual life if you are constantly moved by heightened states of emotions. And what you are saying and what you are doing is all predicated by some sort of heavy emotional, state. This is just not cool, and it's not healthy. And from a spiritual point of view, it leads one into what are broadly categorized as darker regions. It's equated to being animal-like. Animals have no capacity for social intercourse. They're just completely driven by emotions. The cat can only play with the pet bird for so long before it one day takes a bite out of it. I can remember my mother, she had a budgie and they also had a cat, and sort of, supervised a mixing of the cat and the budgie. And so the budgie would hop around and sometimes hop on the cat and everything, and the cat sort of tolerated it. And she came to think that over time, months, that this was a safe environment. But the cat is a cat. It is ruled by animal instinct. And when the desire came to bite the head off the budgie, it could not resist. And my mother ended up in tears. But this is what is being proposed. I'm particularly disturbed by what's going on in relation to, the current, and I'm going to say obsession, because it's not healthy with racism. People that now have declared that you should not be judged on the basis of your skin color, the melanin levels, that should not indicate the type of person you are or the nature of your thinking or desires or actions. A person who makes that declaration now is called a racist. If you say, no, you shouldn't be overly focused on that, you should try and look at things in a more spiritual way, you are accused of racism now. And yet it was Martin Luther King in his I Have a Dream speech that said exactly the same thing. That I have a dream that one day my children will be judged on the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. That is now considered a racist statement. And it's just like, what the hell is going on here? Why is there all this outrage and raised voices and violence and anger and hostility? This is not going to solve anything. It's impossible that this can produce a good outcome, ever. This age of outrage is actually really one of the underlying causes or catalysts is social media. Social media, artificial intelligence, and the logarithms that are developed. There's this wonderful woman, she's originally from Turkey, and she is called a techno-sociologist, I think. She's got a whole bunch of talks on, the TED Talks. And one of them was about the ethics of logarithms. And she talked about how they don't even know how these things work, the people that develop them. They are so incredibly powerful. And when they learn, they follow you. Like in Google, you type something in the search bar and you decide not to search on that, to change part of it or to erase it. Hey, too late. That's already tied to you and that will follow you. And that's part of the huge amount of information that people are capturing about you. So she was mentioning she was really interested in the last political election in the USA. And she wanted to look at, she was looking at the different types of reactions from society. And so she was studying some of the speeches of Donald Trump. Yeah. And so she was going to YouTube. And being highly trained technically, she suddenly observed that as she started looking at these things, that she was being, on the right-hand side in YouTube, you get served videos. So as soon as she started doing this, she was being served videos about racism and white supremacy. And she thought, wow, this is amazing. Why am I being served those things? And of course, the whole intention of social media is to capture you. The more time you spend on a device, on these platforms, the more valuable you become. Everything, the way you react to things, when you share stuff, and who you share it with, and then they follow those and who they forward it onto and who they forward it onto. And they just build this massive, unbelievable amount of information on you. And one of the things she talks about is that they have found that outrage captures people's attention. When you see something that outrages you, either you're drawn to it and get all upset, or you hate it and get all upset. Either way, you are captured. And the more time that you spend there, then the other thing that she observed and has analyzed over time was that when things start getting served to you, if you keep going, then the level of intensity, the level of extremism also becomes raised to capture you further and further. And this is highly problematic and has really contributed to this age of outrage. And one of the downsides from a spiritual perspective is that the more we become engaged emotionally, positive or negative, with things, the more difficult it is to actually come to recognize my deeper and eternal spiritual nature. I become more absorbed in that which is temporary, in that which is passing, that which is material in nature. And that's never going to be good for anyone. And so my advice to the person who asked me about this, I don't even know if this topic is of interest. Is this okay? It's pretty far out. And it's important. And from the point of view of the transcendentalist has always aspired to become untouched by this world, to be able to live within this world, but to experience that which is beautiful, that which is peaceful, that which is transcendental, to reconnect with my eternal spiritual nature, and to really encourage that in others, because this is where our greatest good lies, the possibility to experience the reality of the most wonderful spiritual love, to be able to experience not just joyfulness, but an ecstatic, transcendental state. The things that we are deeply searching for, the feeling of security, to not feel like we have been, we are at the mercy of things. The more a person becomes moved just in responding continuously to impulse and emotional states, the more unhappy you will become, the more entrenched in material consciousness you will be. I mean, this is one of the primary things that we teach in our prison meditation and mindfulness programs. I mean, all of those guys in there that we deal with, they have all had the experience of becoming victimized by their own mind, by their rage, or by their impulses. I mean, one of the things we talk about in the commission of crime, any kind of crime, violent crime or any kind of crime, in the commission of crime, the person, the offender, cannot see a victim. Whether this is a sexual crime or a property crime or any kind of crime, the offender does not see a victim. They just see what they want and they feel compelled to get it. And any resistance, when you don't hand over the cash, when you don't agree to being raped, they're not seeing a victim, they're just seeing somebody getting in the way of what they want and what they are sure is going to bring them happiness. And they need to get this obstacle out of the way. And one of the big transformations, the personal transformations that any kind of person that's inflicted harm on others goes through, is when they begin to experience empathy. And they can begin to experience what they are doing to someone, what somebody else is experiencing. Just to realize that when I beat my child and screamed at them and inflicted violence on them, to be able to connect with what the child is seeing and thinking and feeling and experiencing, all of a sudden brings great shame, tremendous shame, and regret. But when I do not see a victim, when I just see something that's getting in the way of what I want, then I deal with it as an obstacle. And the problem with this whole outrage mentality that's pervading society, it's reducing, it's dehumanizing people. It's utterly debasing people. This is not good for society. It cannot produce any good. If you think that you can bring about a solution through violence and anger, even though it may be considered righteous, no, it's not going to produce a good result, I'm sorry. In our own lives, if we are aspiring transcendentalists, we are on this journey, on this path, learning to step back from the mind and the emotions, particularly when they are raging, to take a time out and wait until you are actually completely calm before you start considering, how should I deal with this? What should my response be? What is going to produce the best result for me and for others? But we are not being taught to do this. You know, we live in an age of instant gratification. People can't even, you know, if I want something, I want it now. And I just don't even have patience. I mean, it's got to the point where somebody's on their phone, and if that internet connection is a bit glitchy, people are ready to throw the phone. Don't you see what's going on here? You know, you've got this little tiny thing that is infinitely more powerful than my first computer. I mean, it used to be at a time if somebody called you on the phone, you had to be by the phone or you didn't know that somebody called. That wasn't very long ago. And our patience is, you know, because of, we're being taught to be impulsive, to act on impulse. It's in the interest of anybody selling anything to have everybody absolutely, impulsively just buying and consuming and doing things without any consideration. And so on so many fronts, we're being subjected to this drive, you know, of not having any control over your mind, your thoughts, your impulses, not having social decorum, where you cannot even tolerate somebody having a different thought than you. That normally happens in dictatorships. I've lived in dictatorships. One time I spent 10 years living in a country that was run by a dictator, and you expressed opinion against them, you disappeared, and you were tortured to death. Thousands of people. I know what it's like to live in that kind of regime. It's not a theory, it's a practical reality. And now everybody's been encouraged to be like this. Be absolutely intolerant of other opinions if they're completely opposite to yours. Nobody's allowed to have any kind of like, you know, and it's just not cool and it's not healthy. And so for us, it's really necessary to be a little bit more aware of the influences that, you know, we are unaware of it. But the key thing is really if in your life you can learn to not impulsively act on the dictates of your mind and emotions, you will have more or less a quite happy life. You will be happier than if you go the other way. And that's because it's making it so that you can experience the reality of your actual spiritual existence. Okay, so that's like a really big subject, and we just sort of flew through it quite quickly. So, you know, I'm really encouraging people, please, you know, we need to be the masters of our own life. If we're highly emotional about things, then anybody that can tweak our emotions and appeal to them, they're the ones that are in control of us. You know, we need to be in control of our own life and be making really good decisions so that we can produce really good outcomes in our life for ourselves and those that we are in contact with. Okay, anybody have a question?
You know, I've been in situations in my life where I've reacted quite strongly to people that have outraged me many times. And then I've been in situations where I've had extreme sorrow and grief. And, you know, how do you sort of
deal with
It's like
that?
it doesn't sort of go away in a minute,
Yeah.
you know, it can last for weeks and months.
You cannot undo that which you have done. You cannot change the past, but you can become the master of your future. The choices that it's all about where to from here. At this moment in my life, what do I need to do to become a better person, a more compassionate person, to have a better relationships? And that's where I need to focus. And you will find that almost everyone can actually be very forgiving, provided they see that you are sincere in your desire to become a better person. So rather than focusing on the past, one should focus on the future and take control of that, and hope that people will. I mean, part of our life should always be to seek forgiveness from those that we have wronged. This is not a weakness. That one needs great strength, because you have to be very vulnerable and you need to be sincere so somebody will believe. And you have to manifest some change for them to be able to believe and to forgive. And when somebody forgives you, the burden that becomes lifted from your heart is almost unimaginable. It causes people to sometimes just break down and cry. It's just such an incredible relief. And one of the people that we have spoken about before, in this criminal justice reform documentary we've been working on, it talked about when the daughter of one of the men that he had been responsible for murdering wrote to him and forgave him, so that she said, you can find peace and I can find peace and our society can find peace, and because it is the right thing to do. And I asked him, so when you heard this letter, what was your reaction? And this is a stone cold killer, fully tattooed and everything. He said, I cried. So the reality is we can't change the past, but we must become good people going forward. And we should be remembered for the end of our life, not necessarily the journey or things that happened before. That needs to be the focus. Okay? Thank you very much. So I was asked to chant the same one I did last week. So I guess I have to do that. Otherwise I might get into trouble. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.